Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And could each side please provide myself and the scoring panelists with copies of their trial rosters, please? Oh, and that has been shared. Thank you so much. Let me just pull it up really quick. So I have that. Perfect. And then where did you guys go? There you are. Okay. And okay, I saw that it came on that we are recording. And I'm going to inform everyone that the Colorado Bar Association may be taking photographs of the competition, or I guess screenshots in this instance, and that team participation in this tournament grants automatic permission in the use of these photos by the Colorado Bar Association. Is there anyone in the gallery, if there is anyone that is not a team member, coach, or a timekeeper, needs to leave the courtroom? And I'm going to have to assume that was done because I don't know if I could distinguish who's supposed to be here or not. And then there will be no recesses. I will take a couple of minutes prior to closing arguments. And then once closing arguments conclude, we will go ahead and take a few minutes to allow myself and the scorekeepers to put together their final scores. And Mr. Berg, Ms. Flores, do you have any reason that you would possibly be biased judging either team in this round?
No, Judge, I only have the roster for the defense. Was the plaintiff's roster uploaded?
I assumed it was everyone when I looked at it.
Judge.
I appreciate that so much. And could the plaintiff side please provide their roster as well? And could someone from team number 4 please indicate if you're trying to upload the roster? Bueller? No. Since I have it up, Catalina on team number 4, if you could go ahead and let me know, is your team trying to upload your team roster right now?
Yes, Your Honor, we are trying.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're
Take your
welcome.
time.
Your Honor, I was just informed that the rosters should have been submitted electronically to the regional coordinator.
Let me see if let me double check one thing really quick. Okay, let me reach out to Mr. Downey.
You could just email it to us, Judge, if you received it electronically.
I have not received it electronically, but Mr. Downey has. My first text to him asked him where the missing rooster was. So then I had to correct my spelling.
The hazard of autocorrect, perhaps. I don't know.
Yes, or my poor spelling. Oh, there is. Oh. Okay. Well, I've texted him and requested a chat, so we'll give him a moment to respond. He may be helping another courtroom.
Your Honor, we are willing to turn on our cameras and just introduce ourselves slowly if that makes things easier for you so they can be written down instead.
That is a great suggestion. I'm going to give Mr. Downey like 2 more minutes, and if we don't get him, then we'll proceed that way. So thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you.
While we're waiting, I can dispense with a couple of other matters. I'm going to remind the teams and coaches that any disputes arising out of this competition must be reported in accordance with the competition rules. I'm going to remind the teams their compliance with time requirements will be considered in scoring individual performances. We don't have a jury box, so I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to go ahead and while we are waiting, I'm going to swear everybody in. And for this purpose, I would like everybody to turn their cameras on so I can see everybody and have them raise their right hands. Thank you so much. And I think could timekeeper number 4 turn there we go. Raise your right hand, one last one. Thank you all so much. Good morning, everybody. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? How about everybody shake their heads yes? Okay, I'm seeing everybody shaking their heads yes. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? Okay, for the record, I'm seeing head shakes of yes. Gallery members, including teacher and attorney coaches, well, we shouldn't have anybody else there, but if we have any teachers, Matt, do we have any teachers on? No, I'm not seeing any teachers. I'll just say it for the record. If there are any teachers or attorney coaches, but you must promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sports during my trial round. And then students, you guys can lower your right hands, and my scoring panelist, can you guys raise your hands? Mr. Berg, Ms. Flores, do you swear this morning that you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Okay, thank you both very much. Since we have not had any movement from Mr. Downey or anybody else, we'll go ahead and take the great suggestion that we will go through the roster slowly for team number 4. And what I think I'll do is I'm just going to use my scoring sheet, and I will ask the person to identify themselves. And that way, Mr. Berg and Ms. Flores and I can indicate on our own sheets who is who. So who will be the student attorney for the plaintiff's opening?
I will, Cecilia Piccolo.
Okay, and can you spell your last name?
Piccolo.
Okay, and thank you, Miss Piccolo. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, and who is plaintiff counsel number 1? Team 4, who's the plaintiff counsel number 1?
Me, Cecilia Piccolo again.
Oh, thank you. And then who's counsel number 2? Do we have a counsel number 2 from team 4? Anyone?
1 moment, yeah.
Yes, Your Honor.
And your name?
Velasquez.
Okay, and then do we have team number 4, counsel 3?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and your name?
Lily Burdick.
Okay, and who is witness number 1 for the plaintiff?
I am, Your Honor. Isabella Schulte.
Okay. And plaintiff witness number 2?
I am, Your Honor. Logan Ratai.
Okay. Logan, and I'm sorry, what's your last name, sir?
Ratai.
Can you spell that?
Ratai.
Okay, Ratai, perfect. And then do we have, let me look, we had plaintiff witness number 3.
Catalina Llano, Your Honor.
Okay, and what was your last name?
Llano, Llano.
Thank you. And who's going to be doing the closing for the plaintiffs?
I will, Your Honor. Lily Burdick again.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burdick. I appreciate you identifying your name. I think that covers everybody. Mr. Berg, Ms. Flores, did you get all of that?
The one I didn't get, Judge, was plaintiff witness number 1.
And that was Ms. Schulte, is that correct? Okay, and I'm getting head nods.
Thank you, Judge.
Absolutely. And Ms. Flores, did you get everybody?
I'm good now also. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. And I apologize if I address you by your name. I wrote down your names phonetically in an effort to pronounce it correctly, but if I messed that up, I apologize. Is the defense satisfied with the roster that was provided and that we did it this way?
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge, this
Okay.
is Jason Downey. I'm sorry this is a little untimely, but is this the roster for Team 6 you need?
4.
4?
So we just went through, one of the kids had a great suggestion. We did everything else while we were waiting for you. And then they suggested that they could just go ahead and verbally identify themselves. So we went through and filled out our scoring sheets with their help.
Okay. If I do have it, and I just looked, I will get it put into the chat shortly.
Thank you. That was their understanding that it was going to be through
Okay,
the administration side.
got it.
I think with that, we are ready to proceed. Are the timekeepers ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and does team number 2 have a timekeeper? I'm only seeing one team, or does the timekeeper for 4 do both teams?
Yes, there's a timekeeper for team 2.
Oh, okay. Is that oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Your screen, when I see it when you go off video, is just a white blank box, but then I saw timekeeper too. So we're good to go. Are there any preliminary matters from team 4 that you wish to have addressed before we proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
At this time, plaintiff would like to admit stipulated facts into evidence. Plaintiff also requests that time is stopped for technical difficulties. Plaintiff also requests any time left on closing is left for a rebuttal.
Okay. Does the defense have any position on the plaintiff's request to admit stipulated exhibits and then the timekeeping requests?
No.
Okay. Thank you. And so I will go ahead and admit all stipulated exhibits and then the timekeeping requests as well. And sir, Mr. Is it Mayor?
Maher.
Maher. I apologize, Mr. Maher. Mr. Maher, does the defense have any preliminary matters?
Yes, Your Honor. On behalf of both teams, let the record reflect that one of my team members will be posting the appropriate trial rosters for competition in the Zoom chat for the purposes of exchanging rosters as a preliminary matter.
Thank you. And I will note for the record that team 2 did provide their mock trial roster in the team chat, and I've reviewed that. Are there any other matters?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, we request the court's preference on cross-examination.
And so you're asking for after direct cross-examination, and I'm looking right now if that is permitted. Let me look. Pursuant to the rules, it does indicate that there may be a recross examination if redirect has occurred, and the recross will be limited to the scope of any redirect. So yes, with limitations.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, we also ask that pursuant to competition rule 7.4, that when an exhibit is shown to a witness, a member of the examining attorney's team will be able to pull that exhibit up utilizing Zoom's screen share function. Additionally, we ask that all exhibits or documents posted in this manner are not deemed to be seen by the jury until published.
Does the plaintiff have any position on, and I should have asked, and I apologize, does the plaintiff have any position on the request for recross examination?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and then how about the exhibit, that exhibits will not be considered published to the jury until they are admitted?
No, Your Honor, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Maher, any other additional issues? I will go ahead and allow that on the exhibits.
Yes, Your Honor. Also, according to competition rule 4.7, we ask that no additional edits are to be made to documents, including markings or enlargements outside of today's trial, and only will be allowed if edits were made in today's trial utilizing the Zoom annotation tools. In addition, pursuant to rule 7.4, we can utilize those Zoom annotation tools to enlarge documents during the trial or highlighting something for ease.
Okay, and Ms. Piccolo, do you, I'm going to pick on you since you were responding. I appreciate that. Do you have any position on no edits to exhibits other than, let's just call them the Zoom available Zoom enhancements?
No, we don't, Your Honor.
Okay, and do you also agree that the Zoom enhancements are, you guys can, both sides can use those if you need to enlarge something?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and that issue is resolved. Next issue, Mr. Maher.
Yes, we ask that all evidence be deemed to have constructively been handed to opposing counsel for review while during the admittance of evidence.
And for purposes of the record, I don't need a response from the plaintiff. Yes, they will, any exhibits will have been deemed provided to the other side for both teams.
On behalf of both teams, I would like to recommend, if at any point at the trial that the court cannot hear or see any of the witnesses or attorneys, please feel free to interrupt and have time stopped.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, and I will.
Your Honor, we understand that sound quality and internet connectivity may vary at all times throughout the trial, and we ask that either team experiences those difficulties, that we are allowed to stop time, come back, fix all the technical issues, and re-ask the question for the full capacity.
Absolutely. And I will also include in that any technical difficulties that I may have, or Mr. Berger, Ms. Flores.
And lastly, Your Honor, we ask that our timekeepers be allowed to post the time remaining publicly, seeing as it is a timed event.
And Ms. Piccolo, does the plaintiff have a position on the posted time?
Yes, that works.
Okay, and I will go ahead and grant that request. So the timekeepers are permitted to post the time.
Also, if at any point the timekeepers are more than 15 seconds away, we stop the trial and bring that issue to the court's attention.
Okay, that works for me. I appreciate that.
And Your Honor, at this time, would you like the defense to introduce themselves? We didn't really go through introductions.
Yes, you can go ahead and do that since the plaintiffs did that by default when with the roster issue. So yes, please go ahead and have the defense introduce themselves.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Mr. Maher, I am assuming you're defense counsel number 1.
Yes.
Okay. And then who is number 2?
That's you.
And your
I'm
name?
number 2, Your Honor.
I'm sorry?
I'm number 2, Your Honor.
Okay, and your name?
Nkechi Onyejikwe.
I know I wrote your name down before. Oh, Nejikwe? Is that correct?
Onyejikwe, yes.
Okay. Okay, and who's defense counsel number 3?
I am, Your Honor. Will Damon.
Okay. And who's witness number 1 this morning?
I will be, Your Honor.
And your name?
V. Wing.
Okay. And defense counsel witness number 2?
That will be me, Your Honor.
And your name?
Ria Singh.
Okay, thank you, Miss Singh. And witness number 3?
Me, Your Honor. That would be me.
Okay, and your name, sir?
Jet Fisher.
Jet Fisher. And who on your team will be doing the closing?
I will be, Your Honor.
Okay, and that was Mr. Damon, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And the timekeeper. And what is I'll have to go back to team number 4. What is the team 2's timekeeper's name?
My name is Christian Murray.
Okay, good morning.
Hi.
And who is the name of the timekeeper for team number 4?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Caitlin McCready.
Okay, thank you, Miss McCready. Okay, are there any other matters, Mr. Maher, from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Maher, go ahead.
Sorry, I just said that the defense is ready for trial.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to go back to Ms. Piccolo. Mr. Maher, do you have, or does anyone on your team have any conflicts with myself, Mr. Berg, or Ms. Flores that you're aware of?
As of right now, I am not aware of any.
Okay, and Ms. Piccolo, are there any conflicts from team 4?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Did I miss anything procedurally that you guys are aware of? I'm hearing nothing. Go ahead.
Quickly, Your Honor, just how would you prefer names be displayed?
It is really helpful where you have the witness name as well as the person's real name. And it's also helpful that you have your team numbers on there. Yes. So if you can change, if you're a witness, put your witness name and your real name. I think that is helpful for the scoring. Mr. Berg, Ms. Flores, feel free to jump in if you have any other suggestions on that portion as well. I think it takes a village to run a courtroom. My court clerks would always tell you that. So I'm always open to suggestions if we can do something a little bit different. Okay, I'm not hearing anything from anybody. Then we've dispensed with preliminary matters and we will move on to opening statements. So Ms. Piccolo, I believe that was your.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. A young Dakota Weir was sadly diagnosed with cancer after Lush Fertilizer chose wealth over health. Plaintiff Dakota Weir used Lush fertilizer almost every day at work. Dakota Weir was always an active member of their community. That can include volunteering at the homeless shelter or being part of NHS. But now, after the negligent actions of Lush fertilizer, they can barely even help around the house. The defense will claim that Dakota Weir wasn't using the proper protective gear when working with their fertilizer. The company will refuse to take responsibility for the negligence of their actions. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, co-counsel and opposing counsel, my name is Cecilia, and on behalf of my team, we will be representing the plaintiff, Dakota Weir. The plaintiff had been working with Lush fertilizer products since the age of 14. That is 6 years of being exposed to the toxic chemicals in Lush fertilizer. The fertilizer caused rapid weight loss and constant sickness. There are many articles and studies about the product Drufo and its cancer-causing chemicals, as well as the carcinogen in the product that you're supposed to bake out in order for it to be non-cancer causing. Lush fertilizer continues to ignore the harm that this product can cause on its buyers. Yet Blake Duncourt will deny ever knowing about Drufo and the harm it causes. The defense will still blame my client for the failure of them choosing wealth over health. Now, Dakota Weir's has to suffer from their actions. In fact, places like France have the exact same chemicals except the cancer-causing Drufo. Today, the burden of proof is on the plaintiff, and you, the jury, will decide by preponderance of evidence, meaning that probably true more than not, that Lush Fertilizer Incorporated and their product Drufo caused Miss Weir's non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And we, the plaintiff, will prove Lush Fertilizer and their product Drufo is the cause. We will do this through evidence and testimony of 3 witnesses. First, you will hear from Dakota Weir's. Dakota Weir's will testify their experience with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Second, Carson Durst's testimony will support the cause of Drufo, as well as bring forth evidence justifying Lush Fertilizer causing the cancer. Lastly, Casey Rogers, expert in toxicology and agriculture products, will testify the dangers of Drufo. The defense will bring forth witnesses that will not only deny ever knowing about the harm Drufo can cause. So stick around and watch the defense choose wealth over health. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And from the defense, does the defense wish to make their opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Maher, excuse me.
You're all good. Your Honor, opposing counsel and members of the jury. My name is Brendan Maher, and my co-counsel and I are here today to represent Lush Fertilizer Incorporated. This case consists of the miscalculated, the misplaced, and the misused. Since the year 2000, Blake Doncourt has grown our client through sufficient research and development and significant capital into one of the world's largest suppliers of yard and commercial fertilizer. Lush Fertilizer was the flagship product that skyrocketed and allowed businesses and individuals alike to produce a vibrant green grass that is made possible through Lush's patented bonding agent, Drufo. Lush Fertilizer Incorporated and Mr. Blake Doncourt are focused on the environment and the good that humans can put back into the world. They donate 10% of their annual earnings towards charities that are focused on decreasing the world's nitrogen footprint, and they have been instrumental in creating state and national legislation to focus on educating worldwide about environmental issues. And now our client is faced with an accusation that their chemical, Drufo, is linked to non-Hodgkin lymphoma. But there's never been any data concluding so. Their extensive research and testing before the release of their product did not identify any such link between non-Hodgkin lymphoma and Drufo, and this was a miscalculation on others' part. Since there was little to no risk of the person using the fertilizer, there was no need for a warning label to be put on the product, and there was nothing under federal or state laws saying there was supposed to be one. A label would have been put there if any of the scientific data had deemed so. Today, you will hear from 3 witnesses from the defense. Dr. Devin Williams, the lead at the Toxicology Research and Development Labs at Lush Fertilizer Incorporated. Skylar Weirs, investigative journalism with knowledge of modern agritech and the twin sibling of the plaintiff. And finally, Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer himself. Dr. Devin Williams would testify to her involvement in the development of Trufo, the research that went into developing the chemical, as well as her expert opinion on the miscalculated studies of other researchers. Skylar Weirs would testify to her findings on modern agritech and how the chemical Trufo was misplaced in the category of carcinogenic. She will also testify to her relationship with the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs. Lastly, Blake Doncourt will testify to the good nature of the company, the amount of extensive research that went into the production of Lush Fertilizer, and how Carson Durst relates to this case, as well as how they misused their training and took it to another company. The miscalculated, the misplaced, and the misused. The plaintiff will call 3 witnesses as well today. Dakota Weirs, the plaintiff who developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma, is now accusing Lush Fertilizer of hiding or willfully ignoring research that said any of the dangers of Trufo. Carson Durst, a former employee of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated that was fired and got employed at the biggest competitor of Lush Fertilizer, Terrace Greenery, to spite Mr. Doncourt, and Dr. Casey Rogers, a professor at the University of California at Berkeley. As the defense, we do not hold the burden of proof. That solely lies upon the plaintiff. They must prove 4 statements. First, that Lush contains the bonding agent Trufo. Second, Lush Fertilizer Incorporated was negligent by failing to exercise reasonable care to prevent unreasonable harm. Third, Dakota Weirs was reasonably expected to use said product. And finally, that Dakota Weirs' damages were caused by the negligence of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated, as she was supposed to use the product in a manner that was reasonably accepted. If you find that any of these 4 statements are not proven today, your verdict must come back for the defense. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, you're muted.
Thank you so much. The plaintiff may call their first witness.
Plaintiff calls Dakota Weirs to the stand. Good morning, Ms. Weirs.
Good morning.
Ms. Weirs, what has brought you to court today?
I am here because I'm suing Lush Fertilizer. They caused my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I want them to pay for what they have done to my life, as well as who knows how many others.
Ms. Weirs, please explain for the court what non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is.
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is where my body produces abnormal lymphocytes, which is a type of blood cell.
And how long ago were you diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Ms. Weirs?
Not very long ago. It was just after I'd graduated high school and before I was going to go to Juilliard.
Ms. Weirs, how exactly has your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma impacted your life?
It has impacted my life in a lot of ways. I used to be a very active member of the community, volunteering. I used to play piano. I can't anymore because if I sit for too long, I bruise, which makes today especially hard. And it's taken a toll on my relationship with my twin sister. It's a lot.
And what symptoms have you experienced due to your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I've experienced countless symptoms. I get fevers along with chills, stomach and chest aches. I have had very severe weight loss. I'm constantly fatigued. I have sore lymph nodes, which can be very painful. And because of all this, especially the fatigue and not being able to do anything, I have been getting quite depressed as well.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. You mentioned a career in music. What instrument do you play?
I play the piano.
And why did you start?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Response, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Ms. Burdick.
Your Honor, this is laying foundation for the emotional stress that Ms. Weirs has suffered due to her non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
I'm going to go ahead and allow the question. Go ahead, does the witness need the question repeated?
No, Your Honor.
Go ahead and answer it, please.
I started playing piano at a young age with my grandfather. It's a very fond memory I look back upon. When he passed away is when I started seriously pursuing it, and I have quite the talent for it, not to toot my own horn. So I got into Juilliard with a full ride scholarship for playing, and I saw it as my future. But now I haven't been able to play because of my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it kind of feels...
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative.
Ms. Burdick, do you have a response?
Your Honor, I can separate the response. I can add another question.
Why don't you go ahead and to do that just for purposes of the record?
Ms. Weirs, so as far as not being able to play anymore and your scholarship to Juilliard, what does that mean for you?
Well, not being able to play anymore feels like I'm losing my grandfather all over again. And losing my scholarship or my ability to go to Juilliard is just makes it very hard to see a future for myself.
All right. And Ms. Weirs, you mentioned that your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma has put a strain on your relationship with Skylar. Can you please elaborate on what that means for you?
Well, we never grew up particularly close, or like the weird twin close, as you see in movies, but we've always loved each other dearly. But this whole court case and the money situation at home has really put a strain on our relationship, and I want us back, but it's, like I said, hard to see that after everything that's happening right now.
So, Ms. Weirs, how do you know for sure that your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is not genetic?
Because
Objection, Your Honor. Lacks foundation.
And Ms. Burdick, do you want to go ahead and maybe ask a little bit more question, a question about how she has knowledge of the Hodgkin's?
Yes, Your Honor. So, Ms. Weirs, after your diagnosis with the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, did you look into how you could have contracted it?
Yes, of course. And along with my doctors informing me as well, I found that non-Hodgkin's is in fact not genetic, it's actually environmental.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
I'm going to go ahead and overrule that objection and allow the answer. Ms. Burdick, your next question.
Ms. Weirs, so where would you have been exposed to something that would have caused your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Well, I was exposed a lot in my job at Haven Landscaping.
And how long were you working at Haven Landscaping?
I worked there for about 6 years, from the age of 14 up until very recently.
Ms. Weirs, how often were you working with Lush fertilizer products while you were at Haven?
Almost all the time, because I was always too young to operate the heavy machinery such as weed whackers or the ride-along mowers. I was always spreading fertilizer, seed of that sort, so I worked with Lush a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. And would you be able to recognize one of those labels today?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, at this time, plaintiff requests to screen share Exhibit 1.
Any objection, Mr. Dahman?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Ms. Weirs, can you see Exhibit 1?
Yes.
So without going into the contents of this exhibit, can you please identify it?
This is the label from a Lush fertilizer.
And how do you know?
I worked with it a lot during my job.
So is this a true and accurate representation of the fertilizer that you were using often?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, plaintiff moves to admit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection, Mr. Dahman? And am I pronouncing that correct? Is it Dahman?
It's Damon, Your Honor, and I have no objection.
Okay, I apologize about that, Mr. Dahman. And I will go ahead and admit plaintiff's 1.
And plaintiff asks to publish Exhibit 1 to the jury.
You may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Ms. Weirs, when the exhibit was up, was there anything that you noticed in particular about the label?
There was no warnings. There's only recommendations, really.
And did this affect your behavior with the product?
Yes, it did. I feel like if I would have known that this product could cause cancer, something that harmful, I would have taken more precaution. And besides, I was a teenager. What did I know?
Ms. Weirs, please elaborate on what you mean by you would have taken more precaution.
Well, we were supposed to wear personal protective equipment, which is long sleeves, long pants, and a mask. But I was always working during the summer, and it would get very hot working outside in the sun all day. So I wouldn't always wear long sleeve or pants because that's what the people around me did. And I just followed the influence of the people around me. I always wear a mask, but I would sometimes take it down to feel some fresh air on my face. Like, as we all know, masks can get very stuffy and such. You just need a little breather sometimes.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. So what has led you to believing that Lush fertilizer is what could have caused your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Well, one day when I was in a pretty serious bout of depression after my diagnosis, I was laying on the couch watching TV when a commercial came on for claiming that Lush fertilizer has been linked to the cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
And Ms. Burdick, do you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor, one moment. Your Honor, this does not go to the truth of the matter asserted. It is just what led Ms. Weirs here today.
I'll go ahead and admit the statement. She's not offering the information in the commercial as truth of the matter. She's offering it as an explanation of why she did what she did. So I will go ahead and allow it. You may answer the question.
So as I was saying, it said that Lush fertilizer had been linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma because of a chemical called Drufo in it. So then I went and kind of did my own research on it.
And Ms. Weirs, in your research, what did you find?
I found that Drufo, the chemical itself, is banned in the EU. And then I found an ingredients list from France and translated it into English, finding there was no Drufa.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. So just as a reminder for the court, how old are you, Ms. Weirs?
I'm 20 years old.
And what has your non-Hodgkin's lymphoma done to your future?
Honestly, I feel like it's almost ripped it apart. I see no hope of going to Juilliard or pursuing my career and dreams. It's put a strain on my family, and it's really just stopped me from being who I want to be and who I think I am.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs, and thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Weirs, before I begin, I'd like to address something that you said on direct examination. You stated that if you had known that lush fertilizer caused non-Hodgkin lymphoma, you would have done something differently. Is that correct?
Yes.
However, in your statement, you said that you might have done something. You, quote, may have done something differently.
Well, I mean, that can kind of be used interchangeably. Would and might have. It's based on the perspective day to day.
Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about your time at Haven Landscaping. You worked at Haven Landscaping since you were about 14 years old, is that correct?
Yes.
And during your time at Haven Landscaping, you were primarily responsible for spreading seed and fertilizer, is that correct?
Yes, as I said before, I was always too young to operate the heavy machinery like the ride-along lawnmowers or weed whackers or anything like that.
Now, you believe lush fertilizer caused your non-Hodgkin lymphoma because there was no warning or recommendation on the packaging.
Well, I believe that they caused my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and if they would have put a warning on the packaging, I may have been more careful.
Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 1. Your Honor, opposing counsel has already entered this into evidence. So I'm going to have my co-counsel pull up this exhibit.
Thank you.
Now, on this package that you used, there are user safety recommendations. Is that correct?
Yes, there are recommendations.
And one of those recommendations states to, quote, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin.
Yes, it does.
However, you never followed that recommendation.
I would not say never.
In addition, the recommendation says to utilize a respirator or N95 face mask.
Yes, it does.
Yet you didn't wear face masks.
I did,
You did wear face masks,
just not all of the time.
but you didn't want to wear a face mask because it was hot.
I would pull it down and get a breath of air, you know. It was hot, it gets stuffy. Or maybe I wouldn't wear it because it was a particularly hot day.
It is your testimony today that you wore a mask.
I believe at some point during my career I wore a mask, yes.
You wrote a statement today. You wrote a statement before today's trial.
I did.
A statement that you could have added anything if you wanted to, or if you remembered.
Yes.
A statement that you swore to with authenticity.
Yes.
And you could have changed it if you had any new or relevant information.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to screen share what has been marked as the witness's affidavit.
Go ahead.
Now, Ms. Weirs, I'm going to give you a moment to read this affidavit, and then I will come back and ask you a question. Just look at me when you are finished reading. Now, Ms. Weirs, have you finished reading your affidavit?
No, I haven't.
I will give you one more moment to finish reading. Now, Ms. Weirs, nowhere in this affidavit do you state that you wore a mask.
Also, nowhere in this affidavit do I state that I didn't wear a mask.
But Ms. Weirs, don't you think it would be important to include that information in your affidavit,
That I didn't wear a mask?
that you wore a mask? And followed those safety recommendations?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Don't you think it would be important to include information following those safety guidelines and those recommendations in your affidavit?
Yes,
But you did not include those.
I apparently did not.
And we're going to scroll back to the bottom of your affidavit. That is your signature, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm going to move on now. Now, Lush fertilizer isn't the only chemical that you used while working with Haven Landscaping.
No, of course not.
You used Lush fertilizer with other fertilizers and lawn products,
Yes, as I just said.
but you did not follow the warnings or recommendations with those products.
I was just following the people around me, like the example that was set before me. I mean, can you blame me? I was a teenager.
But your boss always told you to cover your face when working with chemicals.
Yes, when I had first started working, he told me that, but over the course of the years, it was never enforced.
But he always told you to cover your face when working.
He told me when I first started working to always cover my face. That is correct.
However, you didn't follow his recommendation.
No, as I said, the people around me did not follow those recommendations. I was following the example of my peers, as well as it was never enforced while I was working.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the plaintiff wish to redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Weirs, which fertilizer brands were you using most often?
Lush fertilizer.
And was there anything on their packaging that ever made you feel unsafe and not always following the recommendations?
No, there was not.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
And does the defense have any recross questions? And I'll remind you that it is limited to the scope of the redirect.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you so much. The witness may step down. Thank you all for your time. And the plaintiff's next witness, please.
The plaintiff would like to call Carson Durst to the stand.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Durst. Go ahead. Ms. Piccolo, the witness is yours.
Okay, please state your full name and spell your last for the record.
Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
Now, why are you here today?
I'm here to talk about Drewville.
So what is your current job?
I work at Tara's Greenery.
How long have you been working at Tara's Greenery for?
I've been working there for around 3 years.
And what do you do at Tara's?
I am the lead product developer.
Okay, now let's talk about your previous job. How did you find out about Lush Fertilizer?
I knew the Doncourt family for years. He knew I didn't have a job at a college, so Blake Doncourt got me a job.
Now, how long did you work at Lush Fertilizer for?
For around 3 years.
Okay, and what did you do within Lush?
I worked with Drewville.
What were your concerns with Drewville?
what was in the product.
And did you alert others about your concerns?
Yes, I did.
You attended a meeting about Drufo.
Yes.
Okay, permission to screen share Exhibit 4.
Permission granted.
Oh my geez. Okay. So what is this?
This was an email that was sent to me by Jerry Langley.
How do you know?
I know because it was personally sent to me and Blake Doncourt and the rest of the workers that worked there.
Is this an accurate depiction of the email you received?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, permission to admit this as evidence?
Does the defense have an objection to the admission of exhibit, I believe it's 2?
Your Honor, objection to hearsay and best evidence.
Regarding, can you extrapolate your best evidence objection?
Yes, Your Honor. In this trial, there is a question of this evidence's authenticity, and it will be brought up later in the trial. If you need, I will give a proof.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Piccolo, do you have a response to the objections?
Well, it doesn't go to the truth of the matter asserted. It's establishing a timeline for the listener.
I will go ahead and overrule the objection and admit it, that it's not being offered for the truth of the matter. It is being offered for a timeline. Go ahead. This is plaintiff's exhibit. It will be admitted.
Okay, and then Your Honor, permission to publish Exhibit 4?
Granted.
Okay, can you please explain the contents of this email?
It is talking about what testing they did on Drufo.
Objection, Your Honor, cumulative.
Ms. Piccolo, did you want to go ahead and respond? And then if we can stop screen sharing.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
There you go.
there.
No, that's okay. That's okay. The objection was cumulative.
It's for foundation.
Your Honor.
Go
if
ahead, Mayor.
I'm asking if this document is being used for the effect on listener, that it only is talked about for the effect of the listener. And I don't think we need to go into what it had or what the document contained. It is for the court to see now, but I don't believe we need to hear what it's about. We only need to hear about how it affected the listener.
Can I respond?
Yes, please.
But how am I supposed to establish a timeline if I don't explain the contents of the email?
I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection. She is, by her questioning, I think the objection was made fairly quickly, and I'm going to allow her to proceed and possibly revisit this objection depending on the questions that Ms. Piccolo has going forward. So Ms. Piccolo, if you want to ask that question again.
Can you please explain the contents of this email?
It is talking about what testing they did on Drufo.
Okay. Now, why do you no longer work with Lush?
I tried to speak to Blake Doncourt about the concerns, but he wasn't listening and he fired me.
Okay,
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay, thank you so much. And Mr. Maher, your witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Durst, you worked at Terrace Greenery since 2006,
Yes, I did.
and your application got accepted before you were fired from Lush.
Yes, it did.
And this broke your non-compete with Lush Fertilizer.
Yes, it did.
And that ended in a lawsuit.
Yes.
And this delayed your employment with Terrace Greenery for 6 months.
Yes.
And you applied there because you thought you were going to be fired soon.
Yes, I did.
And you felt betrayed by Blake Doncourt at that time
Yes, I did.
because he told you to grow up and do your job,
Yes, he did.
because you went to him about a bad performance review.
I went to him to talk about what was in Drufo, and he wasn't listening to what I was saying about the concerns of the product.
So it's your testimony here today that you went to Blake Doncourt himself about what was in Drufo and the dangers.
Yes.
Your Honor, my co-counsel will be bringing up the written testimony of Carson Durst.
Go ahead.
Will you read through your affidavit and give me a nod whenever you're ready? Are you ready, Mr. Durst?
Yes, I am.
And anywhere in your affidavit, do you say that you went to Mr. Doncourt's office to talk about Drufo's dangers?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
At any point in your affidavit, do you bring up that you went to Mr. Doncourt directly about the dangers of Drufo?
No.
Okay. And will you read along with me on line 30? Or line 103, sorry, I misspoke right there. A few months later, after another abysmal performance review in early 2005, it became clear to me that I had no future at Lush Fertilizer. I walked to Blake Doncourt's office on the 9th floor and made a small talk with the administrative assistant. I'll move a little bit further down. As I was thinking about how to respond to the news, sorry. I believe I'm at the wrong section. Sorry, 117. Blake Doncourt was sitting there red-faced, seemingly on the verge of exploding another triad. I should have left Blake's office immediately, but haven't been the best at reading the room. After a beat, Blake looked at me, finally realizing my presence. Carson, what do I owe the pleasure? At least for the moment, Blake's temper seemed to cool. Blake, I stammered. I've come to see you to talk to you about Jerry, or I've come to see if you could talk to Jerry for me. Jerry Langley was the product manager and my direct supervisor at the time. Are those your words?
Yes, they are.
And at any point did you say, so you went to him about Jerry, correct?
Yes, I did.
We can take down the affidavit now. Continuing, you went to him about a bad performance review, correct?
Yes, I did.
And this wasn't the first time you had.
Yes.
The first time you went, he refused to intervene.
Correct.
He even brought up how many qualified applicants he overlooked to hire you.
Yes, he did.
And you believe that you perform on a higher level than your peers.
Yes, I do.
And this all led to you applying at the biggest competitor of Lush Fertilizer, Terrace Greenery.
Yes.
This was so you could get back at Blake Doncourt.
Well, no, I also went there because I didn't want to work with, I didn't want to work at a company where they had a dangerous product.
Is that a yes or a no to my question?
No?
Would you like me to restate the question?
Yes, please.
This was so you could get back at Mr. Blake Doncourt?
No.
You didn't apply at Terrace Greenery to get back at Mr. Doncourt?
It was to get back at him, and I didn't want to work there with the dangerous product that they had.
You said you really wanted to get Blake's goat,
Yes, I did.
and that means to get on somebody's nerves.
Yes.
And that's why you're here today, to get back at Mr. Blake Doncourt.
Yes, I am.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Were you able to communicate your concerns to Dencourt about Truffaut?
I tried to, but he just wasn't listening.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any recross limited to the scope of the redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. The witness may step down and the plaintiffs may call their third witness.
Plaintiff would like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
Okay, and go ahead and commence your questionings.
Your Honor, before we start, I would like to request the remaining time.
The timekeeper could let us know the remaining time, please.
There's 11 minutes and 18 seconds left on direct examination.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Casey Rogers.
Good morning.
Please state your full name and spell the last for the record.
Dr. Casey Rogers, Rodgers.
And why were you called to testify?
I was called here today to testify on behalf of the plaintiff in this matter.
And where do you work?
I'm currently a professor working at the University of Berkeley at California.
And what is your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree in agriculture chemistry from the University of Colorado, and I have a PhD in agriculture and entomology from the University of Berkeley at California.
And what is your area of expertise?
My area of expertise today is in agriculture. Agriculture. Can we pause so I could turn the light back on?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead and grab it. And pause the clock, please, for technical difficulties.
So sorry about that.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start the clock. Not a problem at all. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. What is your area of expertise?
My area of expertise is in agriculture research and toxicology.
And what work have you performed in the field of agriculture?
In the field of agriculture, I've done a few publications that have to do with weed biology.
Okay. Can you please explain what agriculture is?
Agriculture is a science, art, or occupation concerned with cultivating land.
And can you tell the court about your research background?
Not long after I got my PhD, I did go to work for a multinational chemical company.
And what projects are you currently working on regarding toxicology?
Regarding toxicology, I did do some research recently that has been on nature, immune system, and toxicology that has to do with, well, plants.
And what is toxicology?
Toxicology is basically a scientific discipline. It's where I study the effects that certain substances have on living organisms, and I practice treating and diagnosing exposures to certain toxins.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 6.
Permission so granted.
And my co-counsel will be screen sharing my exhibits. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, it's my CV.
And how do you know?
I know because I wrote it.
And to the best of your knowledge, is this a fair and accurate copy of your CV?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 7.
Any objection from the defense regarding Exhibit 7?
Yes, Your Honor, hearsay.
I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection. The appropriate foundation, no requirements have been met, and I will admit plaintiff's Exhibit 7. And you may publish.
Do you recognize Exhibit 7?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
It's all my publications.
How do you know?
Because I wrote all of these publications.
And to the best of your knowledge, is this a fair and accurate copy of your research publications?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, plaintiff would like to enter in Exhibit 6 and 7 into evidence as it shows authenticity and accuracy.
And for the record, could you please clarify, you referred to the previous exhibit and we admitted it under 7. However, the resume was supposed to be 6. Is that correct?
Yes,
And then you're
I would. Sorry, I would like to enter in Exhibit 6 and 7 at the same time, if that is okay.
Okay, and it is. Well, does the defense have any objection to, I previously admitted what we're now calling 6, which was the resume, but then there's the list of publications, which is Exhibit 7. Does the defense have an objection to Exhibit 7?
No, Your Honor.
I'll go ahead and accept 6 and 7, and you may publish both to the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor. And plaintiff would like to enter in Dr. Casey Rogers as an expert in agricultural research and toxicology.
Does the defense have a position on that request?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
I will go ahead and admit the witness as an expert.
Thank you. Moving on to talk about your research publications and DRUFO, let's take a look at your publication on DRUFO toxicity and carcinogenicity from 2017. What is a carcinogen?
A carcinogen is a substance that can cause cancer in the human body.
And what makes something carcinogenic?
To make something carcinogenic, it has to be a substance that goes into the body, either inhaled or goes through the immune system and causes cancer. It also alters and defines or destroys the DNA that's in the cells.
And does DRUFO have any carcinogenic properties in it?
Yes, it does.
And what is DRUFO?
DRUFO is a bonding agent that is in lush fertilizer that can also relate to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And I have noticed that all of your published work is on DRUFO. Why is that?
Well, I saw that DRUFO was very rushed to the market, or lush fertilizer was rushed to the market, and DRUFO was one of the main chemicals that is in lush fertilizer that caught my eye. It was one of the chemicals that I was studying, and it caught my eye most of them.
And is there a link between DRUFO and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yes, there is.
And based on your
moment, Your Honor.
research,
I'm sorry, could we please pause the time? Our timekeeper has been kicked out of the round and is waiting in the waiting room at this moment.
Oh,
Oh, it looks like she's back. Apologies.
no, no worries. Thank you so
Okay.
much for bringing that to our attention. I'm just gonna, for the record, Miss Murray, are you back in action and everything's good?
I wasn't the timekeeper that was kicked. It was for team 4.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, team 4's timekeeper, are you back on?
Yes, Your Honor. They have 5 minutes left on direct.
Okay, thank you so much. Go ahead.
I actually have 5 minutes and 21 seconds left.
I have total time for this segment is 6 minutes and 31 seconds.
And what does timekeeper number 2 have for the remaining total?
What do you mean by remaining total?
Well, that's what timekeeper number 4 indicated. She had, what was it, 6 minutes total for the are you stating that that's what you have left for the plaintiff's presentation of their case, or can you explain a little bit what you meant? And that's for timekeeper number 4. I apologize. I don't have your name right in front of me. And so I'm just referring to you as timekeeper 4.
So after 6:18, they had 5 minutes remaining and their time right now is 6:31. So they have a little over 4 minutes to keep going on direct.
And Ms. Murray, does that jive with what you have?
No, it does not.
And can you clarify the where you, I'm not sure where you guys might be off, and so I'm trying to figure out what is your breakdown?
Okay, so after the first direct, I had 14 minutes and 40 seconds left. Second direct, I had 11 minutes and 43 seconds. Well, that was a time that was, yeah, there was time left. And now I'm at 5:21.
5:21 left for the remainder of the plaintiff's case.
Yes.
Okay, and timekeeper number 4, you had 6 minutes, correct? 6 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yes, I had 6:31 for this segment.
6:31. So are we about a minute off? Did both of you, when we had to take, I asked for the time to be stopped when the witnesses, Dr. Rogers' lights went off, and I'd asked that the time be paused. Did you both pause it?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did we have any other delays or times that we needed to stop it?
With objections, but I stopped then too.
I've been stopping for objections as well.
Okay, so all right, I'm gonna call it, I'm gonna split the baby. I'm gonna say that timekeeper number 1, subtract 30 seconds from yours, so that'd put you, I think, at like 6 minutes and 1 second. And Ms. Murray, put your time at 6 minutes and 1 second as well. Does anybody have any objection, or am I doing that? Does anybody have any concerns about that resolution? And feel free, if you're like, no, you can't do that, let me know.
So the time left remaining is how many minutes left would it be for direct?
Well, I'm gonna have to defer to the timekeeper because is it 6 minutes then?
Yes, that would be 6 minutes.
6 minutes. And is the defense, I'd like to hear from counsel from the defense, I'm Ms. Velasquez, since you're the attorney for the petitioner that's up right now, or for the plaintiff, are you okay with that resolution of splitting the
Yes, I'm okay.
difference? Okay, and I need an attorney. Actually, I have Miss Wanajake. I might have not gotten that correct, and I apologize. You're here, you're in a role as an attorney. Are you okay with that resolution?
It's pronounced Anyejikwe, and yes, I'm okay with that.
I apologize, Miss Nejikwe. I had it written down phonetically on my other sheet of paper, so I apologize about that. Okay, so let's start the clocks at 6 minutes, 1 second. Take it away, Ms. Velasquez, and thank you guys so much for interrupting. I really appreciate the procedural help and resolution. So go ahead, Ms. Velasquez.
All right.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you,
Your Honor.
Yes, go ahead.
For clarification, do you want 6 minutes and 1 second left?
I don't know how you break down I assume that you're given a total block for all teams. Let's just call it, for simplicity for my mind. You guys get 30 minutes or let's say 15 minutes per witness. And that's split between, is it 6 minutes is left for the plaintiff, or 6 minutes for the totality? And I mean, how do you have it broken down?
So you get 25 minutes for, you get 25 minutes for direct questioning. So would you like to leave 6 minutes and 1 second for the remaining of direct questioning?
And I'm going to have Miss Murray weigh in on that, if that is her understanding as well. I'd like the timekeepers to have a meeting of the mind.
From my understanding, yes, that would be the case. It would be left for the prosecution.
Thank you. Okay. I think that resolves it. Go ahead, Ms. Velasquez.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Casey Rogers, would you like me to re-ask the question?
Yes, please.
What is the link between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma based on your research?
The link between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Well, Drufo is a chemical that attacks and destroys DNA that's in the cells, and non-Hodgkin lymphoma is a cancer that also affects the blood cells in the immune system.
And in your expert opinion regarding Dakota Weirs, what is the probability of exposure to Drufo causing the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
She falls under a 5% chance that falls under 72% chance of survival rate.
And you had some concerns about Drufo. What are you concerned about?
I'm concerned about more people ending up like Miss Dakota Weirs. I'm concerned that she's not the only one that has had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma due to Drufo.
Going back to one of your publications on the evidence of human exposure to Drufo, can you walk me through what you did for your study on the evidence of human exposure to Drufo?
Yes, I did conduct an experiment to back up my research. I conducted an experiment that contained 3 different groups. One was like farmers who were very exposed to certain chemicals and such as Drufo. My second group was a controlled group that was more like gardeners that had a less mortality rate to farmers. And then my third group was less exposed. And my research after I conducted this evidence was that the farmers had a 5 times more likely chance to get cancer. The gardeners had a 5 times more chance, farmers had 10, and then the gardeners had a 5 times more chance of getting cancer.
And can you please explain what non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is?
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a type of cancer.
And what are the types of lymphoma?
There's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and a lymphoma that's found in children and young people.
And how does this affect the individual Dakota Weirs?
Well, Dakota Weirs falls under 2 of these different lymphomas because she has been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she also falls under the children and young people since she's been working with Lush since the age of 14, and she's now 20.
And how are you aware of Dakota Weirs?
I'm aware of Dakota Weirs because I saw this case and I have been doing a lot of research because I did feel like Lush was very rushed to the market and did not have extensive research on it before it was used by certain people. So I wanted to conduct my own scientific research on it.
And have you had the opportunity to examine Dakota Weirs?
Yes, I have examined her medical records and her employment records.
And how is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cured?
There is no cure. It can only be treated.
And with all of that being said, what would you recommend to anyone using Drufo?
Well, anyone and any company using Drufo, I would say not to use wealth over health, because without warning people about the side effects and cancer-causing chemicals and properties, it would just be inhumane.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Defense, your witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, this is your first time testifying as an expert witness.
Correct.
You think that this case will open the door to class action lawsuits?
Yes, I would like to prevent and warn people about certain chemicals and substances.
And you hope that if you're successful in this case, you'll forefront that battle.
Yes, so that I can warn people.
Okay, moving on. You conducted a study
Yes, I did.
that includes a control group of people who had never been exposed to Drufo,
Yes.
a group of people who use products containing Drufo on occasion,
Yes,
and a group of people who were exposed to Drufo on a regular daily basis.
that is correct. I did talk about that.
This study included farm laborers who could have hypothetically been exposed to other chemicals as well during the study.
Yes, even though most chemicals do contain the same things.
This study does not account for the other chemicals that farmers could have been exposed to.
That is correct.
So you cannot account for other chemicals being involved within the study.
Yes, but my main research was on Drufo and certain substances that can cause these health effects.
You cannot definitively say that Drufo was the sole cause of cancer because there could have been other chemicals involved.
Definitively, I can, since my research is on Drufo.
You made specific recommendations for protective clothing,
Yes, I did.
such as long sleeve and pants
Yes, as me being a doctor and working in labs.
and medical grade face protective masks.
Yes,
And you reviewed options to reduce exposure and related risks.
yes, I did. I wanted to warn people instead of giving them things that they could do.
If there was to be a testimony today that someone did not wear protective clothing, this would ultimately contradict your recommendations.
Recommendations are not a warning. They are saying that they are recommended. And if the not the right warnings are given to people using these harmful chemicals, then yes.
So this is a yes.
Yes.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Your study was published to a scientific peer-reviewed journal, correct?
Correct.
And was there time for your study to be replicated?
No, this is an experiment that takes years to get the right results that we want.
And your research on Drufo is newer information, correct?
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Onejikwe, do you have any recross limited to the scope of the redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. At this time, does the plaintiff's counsel rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and then the defense may call their first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Dr. Devin Williams. Williams.
You work as the lead toxicologist at Lush Fertilizer, is that right?
Yes, I led the Lush's toxicology research and development labs.
How long have you worked at Lush Fertilizer?
I've worked at Lush for roughly 10 years. 7 of those years were as the lead toxicologist.
What sort of education do you need to become the lead toxicologist?
I earned my bachelor's, master's, and PhD through CSU Fort Collins in either pharmacy or toxicology. Additionally, I did a specialized post-PhD program in pharmacotoxicology at the University of Utah.
What sort of certifications do you need to become a lead toxicologist?
Well, I have certifications in the states of Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, I move to enter Dr. Devin Williams as an expert in toxicology.
Does the plaintiff have any objection to the admission of Dr. Williams as an expert?
No, Your Honor.
She will be so admitted.
Now, during your career, Dr. Williams, you helped develop Drufo at Lush Fertilizer.
Yes, I did.
Could you explain what Drufo is?
Drufo is a non-nitrate polluting bonding agent found in Lush's fertilizer.
And what was Drufo developed for?
It was developed as an ingredient to prevent pollution of nitrate.
What makes Drufo such a revolutionary product?
Drufo is quite revolutionary because it binds the ingredients in fertilizers to the grass or other plants' flora. Therefore, less fertilizer is being used in spray, which results in less pollution.
Now, I'd like to move on to some studies done on Drufo. You were present in the courtroom today when Dr. Casey Rogers testified about her study, right?
Indeed, I was.
What are your thoughts on Dr. Rogers' study?
The study doesn't hold a lot of merits as Dr. Rogers' study lacks both validity and reliability.
So why does Dr. Rogers' study lack validity?
Well, the fundamental validity mistake that Dr. Rogers makes is, in layman's terms, it's comparing apples to oranges. As Dr. Rogers, in this case, is comparing people who seldomly use fertilizer to those who excessively use fertilizers, such as farmers and landscapers. These people have completely different lifestyles.
And why is that difference in lifestyles important?
Well, differences in lifestyles means different environments, resulting in different environmental exposures.
You also mentioned that Dr. Rogers' study lacks reliability. Could you elaborate how Dr. Rogers' study lacks reliability?
Yes, the study lacks reliability because it has not been peer reviewed and, more importantly, no replicated.
And why is replicability so important?
Well, replicability is important because you want to identify an effect rather than the possibility of chances. Additionally, having only one study can include multiple flaws and bias.
Now, Dr. Williams, in your expert opinion, how valid is Dr. Rogers' study?
The study is not valid whatsoever. The results of the studies are completely miscalculated as it's comparing two completely different things.
And in your expert opinion, how reliable is her study?
Dr. Rogers' study is not reliable because it has not been replicated for the results, which allows for any sliver of bias and flaws to be present.
And you also heard today that Dr. Casey Rogers said that her study was published in a peer-reviewed magazine on direct examination, right?
I did.
Would you agree with her statement?
Completely no.
Now, overall, in your expert opinion, is Dr. Rogers' study a good study on Drufo?
Absolutely not. The study lacks basic fundamental concepts of validity and reliability. It's some major miscalculations and the conclusions are being quite misused.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, you have been with the company Lush Fertilizer for about a decade, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it is true that you were the outgoing chair of the company's committee, correct?
Yes.
Was your testing peer reviewed?
In what terms are you asking, Counselor?
Was your testing scientifically peer reviewed?
Yes, through our research and development labs.
But was there any third-party testing?
Well, that is outside the scope of my affidavit, but if you wish, I can respond.
Was that a yes or a no?
The question that you're asking, it's outside of the scope of my affidavit, Counselor. So if you want, I can elaborate more on it.
We'll just move on from this. Did you do any testing outside of Lush Fertilizer?
Oh, through my research and education, yes, but as part of Lush being employed there, that's a bit outside of the scope of my affidavit as well.
So you did your testings in private, correct?
May I ask for clarity on this question of what type of testing you're referring to?
On Drufo itself.
And can you ask that question once more? I'm sorry.
So you only did your testings in private, correct?
Yes.
So it was in-house information, correct?
Yes, as it was part of my job, and we did it through our lab research and development labs.
Was that a yes or a no?
Yes.
The research and information gathered was not reviewed by outside sources.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
And Ms. Velasquez, can you ask the question one more time? I apologize.
Yes, my question was, so the research and information you gathered was not reviewed by outside sources.
I'm going to overrule the objection and allow it in terms of it was basically just summarizing and honing in on what she just answered. Yes, we're getting close to a cumulative, or excuse me, not cumulative, asked and answered, but I'm going to let her answer this last question. So go ahead, Dr. Williams, you can answer the question.
Like I stated before, that is outside of the scope of my affidavit. But if you wish, I can elaborate more.
Yes, that would be great.
Yes, these results were actually tested by third parties, numerous, even outside the, so it has.
So it's been reviewed by outside sources?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
And I will go ahead and sustain that objection. She just did answer that question.
So you did not expand your research to make sure this product was safe, correct?
What do you mean in terms of expanding, Counselor? Because I'm not quite following.
Expanding in a way where you would have it peer reviewed by, let's say, outside sources, not including Lush Fertilizer, but other sources that would also back up your research and information.
We are a starting company, and that question does go like once more outside the scope of my affidavit. And if you wish, I can elaborate and answer that question.
It is a starting company?
Yes, as I said, it's still new and fresh.
Okay, let's refer to Exhibit 1 as it has been published earlier. If my co-counsel would like to pull up Exhibit 1, please.
Yes, just a moment.
All right. On this label, it says it is recommended for customers to wear protective gear, correct?
Yes, as it clearly states.
But there is no warning of the potential hazards, correct?
Excuse me if this comes off a bit rude, Counselor, but does that not say the word hazards right there?
Regarding the effects that you could develop from using this product.
Not quite, no.
No, so it only gives a recommendation and not a warning.
That's correct.
And does that not concern you that there is no warning talking about the effects and potential hazards you obtain from using this product?
Well, like with any fertilizers being used in the field, extra precaution and hazards will come with it. In our case, Drufo doesn't cause any human effects or harm.
And that would not be important to add to the label?
What do you mean? I'm so sorry.
The warnings and potential hazards that you could use to warn the customers of the potential effects they could.
Yes, well, with any use of fertilizer, there would be potential harms or hazards that come in. Extra precautionary should be used.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Dr. Williams, opposing counsel asked you about a warning or hazards on your product's label. Does Drufo have any hazards to people?
No, as through our research and development labs, we studied Drufo and there are no harmful effects towards human. The only thing that whatsoever.
I'd also like to talk about opposing counsel asked you questions about having your studies peer reviewed or just in-house. Did you have your studies peer reviewed by other third parties?
Since that is outside of my scope of affidavit, would you like me to elaborate?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, all studies have been reviewed thoroughly by multiple, at least 10 third-party outsiders to establish that Drufo is safe for humans use as it's not harmful nor cause any, in this case that we are going to court for, cancerous effects.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Any recross within the scope of the redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. So there shouldn't be a warning stating the possible hazards and effects from using this product.
With, like I said numerous times throughout my testimony, with any products there are, but not for all products of Lush fertilizer, they're out other than those that were stated on that warning label that you showed me. There shouldn't be further because all products are, well, regarding Drufo not harming humans.
So it is not important to add that because it is claimed safe, correct?
Yes.
But there should be a warning of the possibilities of hazards, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Does the defense wish to call their next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Skylar Weirs to the stand.
Okay. Go ahead.
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is Skylar Weirs. That's Weirs.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the response. Are you muted?
He's not.
Okay. I'll just move on. What is your connection to Dakota?
I'm Dakota's twin sister.
Miss Weirs, you're testifying against your twin. Why is that?
Although I love my sibling, I know as a researcher in agricultural technology that Lush Fertilizer's product is just as safe, if not more so than its competitors' products. My siblings' blame on Lush is misplaced.
Can you explain what you mean by agricultural technology researcher?
Yes, so I've been publishing and researching about modern agritech for about a year now, and agritech specifically focuses on the advancements in safety and efficiency of modern day agricultural products.
How extensive is your research?
I spent about a year researching, writing, and tracking down publications, including those from the United States Department of Agriculture, as well as the National Association for State Departments of Agriculture.
Can you describe your familiarity with this topic of agritech?
Yes, as well as the publications that I researched previously mentioned, I also authored an article questioning the narrative that there is a causal link between Drufo and cancer before Dakota was diagnosed.
In addition to Drufo, do you have experience researching other chemicals that claim to be carcinogenic?
Yes, I've actually researched many other pesticides and herbicides which contain known carcinogens such as arsenic, glyphosate, and nitrates.
Could you describe the publications that you publish for, in addition to your research?
Yes, so Rashless Magazine that I write for is a science education magazine. We're dedicated to resisting the spread of pseudoscience and irrational beliefs, and my research and writing specifically focus on questioning the narrative that there is a causal link between Drufo and cancer.
Do you have a college degree in agritech?
No, I do not.
Is a college degree important in your research?
Despite not having a degree, my credibility still stands upon my extensive knowledge, research, information, and publications on agritech.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, based upon their knowledge or experience, I am tendering Skylar Weirs as a qualified expert witness in the field of modern agritech to render an opinion on the potential impacts of and safety of pesticides, herbicides, and other agritech products.
And Ms. Burdick, does the plaintiff have an objection to admitting the witness as the proffered in their area of the proffered expertise?
No, Your Honor, plaintiff just requests that she stays within that scope.
Then I will go ahead and grant the defense request, and she's allowed to testify as an expert in the areas identified. Go ahead.
What is your understanding about the carcinogenic nature of Drufo?
So although Drufo contains nitrogen, it actually doesn't contain the active carcinogens that many other pesticides do, such as glyphosate and arsenic.
Given that Drufo contains nitrates, what should a consumer do when using the product?
Oh, just to clarify, Drufo actually contains nitrogen, and this means that when someone is using the product on a daily basis or any product with known chemicals, they should be wearing proper protective gear, at least a mask and gloves.
Have you rendered an opinion on the causal link between Drufo and cancer?
Yes, I have. So research on whether Drufo actually causes cancers like non-Hodgkin lymphoma is really inconclusive at best. There's actually a much more clear link between cancer and other pesticides.
And are these factors reasonably relied upon by experts in your field?
Yes, the International Agency for Research on Cancer categorizes arsenic as a carcinogen as well as glyphosate as a possible carcinogen. Both of these are active ingredients in other pesticides, but not in Drufo.
What are these factors you relied on?
So Drufo's bonding process is far superior to that of its competitors' products. It doesn't contain the active carcinogens that other pesticides do, and there is no conclusive research that links Drufo to any form of cancer.
Can you tell me more about Drufo's bonding process?
Yes, so Drufo bonds to both the grass and lush fertilizer's active ingredients, effectively preventing the chemicals from being washed away as quickly. This means that the chemicals do not have to be applied as frequently, and it also reduces the solubility of lush fertilizer.
Based on these factors that you have researched on Drufo, as well as your expert opinion, do you think it is possible to definitively say that Dakota could have developed cancer through Drufo?
No, as I stated previously, there are a whole other host of pesticides and herbicides which actually contain active carcinogens that Drufo does not. And all of these carcinogenic pesticides are frequently used in fields of landscaping.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, does the plaintiff have any questions for the doctor?
Yes, Your Honor, and to clarify, Skylar Weirs does not have a doctorate.
Thank you.
Plaintiff
I
would also-
apologize. I realized after I said that I misspoke. So thank you for clarifying the record.
No worries, and plaintiff also requests remaining time for cross-examination.
Could one of the timers let us know the remaining time? 11:57. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Weirs.
Good morning.
So, Ms. Weirs, you are only 20 years old, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And as previously stated, you are not currently enrolled in college,
That's correct.
nor have you completed any sort of degree, especially in modern agritech.
No, my only education comes from my year of extensive research and writing.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Weirs, you work for the Rationalist magazine, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And to clarify, this is a magazine, not a peer-reviewed scientific journal.
That's correct. It's a science education magazine.
So none of the articles that you have written on Drufo are scientifically peer-reviewed.
That's actually outside the scope of my affidavit, but if you would like me to answer anyways, I can.
Please.
Yes, so my articles actually have been peer reviewed by several scientific leaders and professors.
But they were not published into a scientific peer-reviewed journal?
That's correct. They were published in a science education magazine.
All right, thank you, Ms. Weirs. So a lot of your opinions today are on Drufo and its safety, but have you conducted any experiments of your own on Drufo?
No, my education comes purely from my findings from the United States Department of Agriculture, the National Association for State Departments of Agriculture, and other resources that I have studied, as well as my publications.
All right, and you have never been personally exposed to Drufo either, have you?
No, I have not.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay, and any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Based on your findings, can you reiterate your opinion on the causal link between Drufo and cancer?
Yes, so to reiterate, I do not find that there is an actual causal link between Drufo and cancer, and there are no conclusive studies that actually do prove this. Additionally, Drufo does not contain the active carcinogens that many other pesticides do, all of which are frequently used in the field of landscaping.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any recross within the scope of the redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. The witness may step down and the defense may call their last witness.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Blake Doncourt to the stand.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Doncourt, can you please state your name and spell the last for the record?
Yes, my name is Blake Doncourt, and my last name is spelled Doncourtt.
And what's your occupation?
I am the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated, and I have been so since 2000.
And what have you done for your company?
I've built this company from its small roots to one of the largest commercial and yard fertilizer manufacturers in the world.
And how has your company impacted the community?
So our company, we donate 10% of our annual profits to notable charities that actually decrease the Earth's nitrogen footprint. Our company has also been very instrumental in developing both state and national legislation to provide environmental education.
And what kind of research has your company done that relates to today's case?
Our company conducts extensive research on our fertilizer products. And now there are others claiming that Drufo has a known carcinogen within it being linked to non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but that is simply untrue because our research team turned up no data that would conclude the same claim.
And how did your product development evolve from this research?
So because Drufo was definitively not carcinogenic, we were given the freedom to use it in our fertilizer products. And our fertilizers were even certified by the EPA.
And how do you feel about Drufo being called carcinogenic?
I haven't seen any scientific research that would support the claim of Drufo being carcinogenic. The only claim about Drufo's potential harm came from Casey Rogers, which no one even heard of this claim until this litigation.
Okay, and I want to talk about past employees, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Were you here for Carson Durst's testimony today?
Yes, I was.
At this time, Your Honor, I would like to have my co-counsel bring up what has been marked as Exhibit 4. It's been entered.
Go ahead.
Mr. Doncourt, what is this?
It looks like an email, but I've never seen such email before.
And how do you feel about Carson using this email against you?
Well, it's clearly manufactured. We even lent our email system to the plaintiff's lawyers, and they haven't found any emails that would support Carson's claims.
We can take down the exhibit now. While we're on the topic of Carson Durst, how do they relate to this case?
So Carson started working for Lush initially as an intern, and his job was to actually locate if there were any potential risks or harm in our fertilizer products. As things go, we eventually had to fire Carson, and he misused the training and experience from our company and took it to our biggest competitor, Terra's Greenery.
And what is your reaction to Carson's claims about Drufo being carcinogenic?
One thing I know for sure is that these claims about Drufo being carcinogenic didn't even come up until after Carson was fired and started working for Terra's Greenery.
And I just want to ask you, how do you feel about Dakota Weirs and in this lawsuit?
Well, I'm thankful that her disease was discovered early and that her road to recovery actually looks quite promising. However, Lush has a strong history of producing safe and effective products, and we're very careful in our research and development of our products as well. I am very confident that Lush had no cause in her illness.
Your Honor, at this time, no further questioning.
Hey, plaintiff, cross-examination, please.
Good morning, Mr. Durst.
Good morning.
Or not Duncourt. Sorry, that's my bad. Are you chief executive at Lush Fertilizer?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 8.
Permission granted.
Thank you. Okay, so what is this?
This looks like the cost. Here, I'm looking at it sideways here. The cost for to produce our products, Drufo specifically.
Okay, and you made this, correct?
Yes,
So this is talking about the profits without baking your fertilizer, correct?
that is correct. Yes.
Okay, so are you supposed to bake your products to remove any source of carcinogen being in it?
Well, we don't bake our products because there's no need to. So we're not supposed to bake it, as you were saying, as you would say.
Your Honor, permission to admit this is evidence?
Does the defense have a position on admission of
Yes,
this?
Your Honor.
I'm sorry.
I object to hearsay.
Go ahead, Ms. Piccolo, if you want to respond to that.
Duncourt made this paper.
And it's, Your Honor, if I may, it was made out of court. And I believe that this will be used to go towards the truth of the matter asserted. And on another note, I would like the full entirety of the document to be shown before it's entered into evidence. I want to know what is being entered because I'm pretty sure it wasn't fully shown.
I'll reshare.
Thank you, Ms.
So
Piccolo.
yes, so this is showing like the costs and everything. Either baking their products or not baking their products, if that was enough for you to be seen.
That is.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection. I believe that this document meets the hearsay exception of a business record that is it can be reasonably relied on, and that the witness testified that they're the one that created the spreadsheet. So I will go ahead and admit petitioner's Exhibit 8.
So permission to publish as well.
Granted. And I'm sorry, Mr. Maher, did you have a comment?
No, I just said yes, Your Honor.
Oh, thank you. I just want to make sure. Okay, yes, you can go ahead and publish it.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so even if you don't have like a certain amount of carcinogen, can there still be a slight chance that there's carcinogen in your product?
I wouldn't say so because there was already little danger. I think you're asking why we wouldn't bake it. Am I correct?
Yeah, we can.
So yeah, like there's no reason to bake it if there's already little to no danger within our product.
But wouldn't baking eliminate all little types of carcinogens even left in product?
I would simply call that overkill because, as I said, there's little danger within it.
So, but you do know the harm carcinogens can cause, correct?
Yeah, I understand carcinogens are harmful, but that doesn't really have anything to do with it being in our product.
But wouldn't you want to do what's safest for your buyers?
Well, it is clearly safe. Like our research team examined it and researched it. There's already little dangers within it.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect from the
Yes,
defense?
Your Honor. Very brief. Mr. Doncourt, what would baking your product do?
It would remove any like dangers that are within any product. But as I said earlier, it is overkill because there's already a tiny amount within it.
So was there any need to bake your product?
No, there was not.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Any recross limited to the scope of the redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Does the defense have any additional witnesses at this time?
No, Your Honor, at this time, the defense rests.
Okay. This brings us to closing statements. I have that it is now 11:23. I'm gonna, oops, I lied. It's 11:24. I'm going to take a brief recess until 11:28, just so the parties can talk real quick about closing arguments. The scorekeepers can catch up. So we will reconvene at 11:28. Thank you. Okay, I think I actually went a minute past. Is the plaintiff ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. And again, plaintiff requests any time left over after closing may be saved for a rebuttal.
Okay, and let me double check real quick. Is the defense ready as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and could we go ahead and have the timer answer the Ms. Burdick's questions regarding remaining time?
Oh, I was just requesting that any time left over after closing is saved
Oh,
for a rebuttal.
thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. The timing part is, I'm still obviously wrapping my head around that. So thank you.
No
Go ahead.
worries.
No, go ahead, Ms. Burdick.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, co-counsel and opposing counsel. Today, you have seen the tragic consequences of the defense's continual choice to put their wealth and their profit over the health of their consumers. Today, Ms. Weirs is tragically suffering at the hands of both non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and Lush Fertilizer Incorporated due to their negligence. Today, the plaintiff has brought forward 3 witnesses. First, you heard from Dakota Weirs, who at 20 years old has had her entire life derailed. Her future is uncertain, and the plan that she had carefully laid out for the first 20 years of her life now seems completely impossible. The failure to put adequate warnings on their products has led to Ms. Weirs' non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. You also heard from Carson Durst, who was hired by Lush Fertilizer and served as a whistleblower today in this court. He continually tried to raise red flags about the dangers of Drufo to both Lush Fertilizer and Blake Doncourt, but was pushed aside, ostracized, and then fired for taking these precautions. Finally, you heard from Casey Rogers, who is the forefront researcher outside of Lush Fertilizer into the safety of Drufo. Ms. Rogers is one of few people who have taken the time to do a multi-year study on the safety of Drufo, something that Lush themselves did not take the time to do in their initial testing back in 2003. Today, the defense also brought forward 3 witnesses. First, you heard from Dr. Williams, who was unable to answer any of the questions that were presented to her, who seems more concerned with both the environment and the profit of Lush Fertilizer than they are with the safety of their consumers and of their product. Nowhere have they ever stated that any of their research has been peer-reviewed outside of Lush Fertilizer. All of the testing done on Drufo was kept in-house, very hush-hush. They claim that Dr. Casey Rogers' studies are invalid, but how can we confirm the validity of their own studies if they have never left the walls of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated? Next, you heard from Skylar Weirs, who runs a magazine, has written articles for a magazine. And this is not a scientific peer-reviewed journal. Their research has been less than a year long. Finally, you heard from Blake Doncourt, who admitted that baking would eliminate any danger associated with Drufo, but claimed that it would be overkill. And today I ask you, is the safety of your customers overkill? Is taking the extra step to ensure that your product is ready for your consumers overkill? Today, plaintiff has the burden of proof, and we ask that you decide by preponderance of the evidence. You must find it more likely than not that Lush Fertilizer is responsible for the suffering that Ms. Weirs has endured due to her non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I remind you that her future has been taken from her at only 20 years old, and today I and the plaintiff hope that she can find justice for what she has endured. Today, we ask that you rule in favor of the plaintiff and find the defendant, Lush Fertilizer, guilty. Thank you. You're muted, Your Honor.
Thank you. And the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. Simply put, this lawsuit is a miscalculation, misplaced, and misused for wealth over health. Before I begin, I'd like to remind the jury of jury instruction number 13. While it is a terrible event to happen to Dakota Weirs, sympathy must not impact your judgment, and your judgment must be based solely on the facts alone, rather than sympathy or emotional bias. With that said, let's talk about how this case is a miscalculation. First, you heard from Dr. Casey Rogers, the expert for the plaintiff, who testified that they didn't account for other chemicals in their supposed definitive study of Drufo. They failed to account for other variables and possible bias. You heard from Dr. Devin Williams, who testified that her study lacks the basic fundamental aspects of science, validity, and reliability. Her study was never peer-reviewed. Her study was never replicated. And based on that, that study is not credible because it lacks the very foundation of science and toxicology. Now let's talk about how this lawsuit is misplaced. You heard from Carson Durst, a former employee at Lush Fertilizer, who testified that he had a meeting with Blake Doncourt to talk about the effects of Drufo and the dangers of Drufo. However, when confronted with his statement, he contradicted himself because that meeting was about a poor performance review because Carson Durst wasn't a good employee at Lush. He failed to do the bare minimum for the Doncourts and the industry. And simply put, he left to go to the biggest competitor of Lush, Terrace Greenery, in order to, quote, get back at Blake Doncourt. You also heard from our expert witness, Skylar Weirs, who testified about other competitors having a higher causal link to cancer because of arsenic and other compounds not found in Lush Fertilizer. Now let's talk about how this lawsuit is misused. You heard from the plaintiff herself, Dakota Weirs, testify that she would always take into account the safety recommendations that were not only on the label from her boss, but also her own expert witness. And when confronted with her own statement, she contradicted herself again. She contradicted herself that she said she wore a mask, that she wore protective clothing, but she never included that. This is the first time today that she has said that she has worn protective clothing and wore a mask. Simply put, she failed to follow her own boss's recommendations, her own expert witness's recommendations, and the intended use for Lush's product. Simply put, Dakota Weirs is negligent for her own actions. I'd like to direct your attention to jury instruction number 8, our affirmative defense. We must prove this affirmative defense by the preponderance of the evidence that Dakota Weirs was negligent in using our product, as well as that negligence resulted in her own damages. And simply put, her failing to take every single precaution is negligence. Now, I'd like to remind the court that for the overarching lawsuit that Lush Fertilizer is negligent, that burden of proof lies solely on the plaintiff. The plaintiff had to prove that Lush Fertilizer contained the compound Drufo, that we were negligent, that Dakota Weirs was an intended person to use it, and that Dakota Weirs used our product in the manner that we did intend. However, they have failed to prove that Dakota Weirs was our intended target audience. Not once today did you hear any testimony relating to who the target audience is for Drufo. Not only did you hear that, you failed to hear that Dakota Weirs acted in a way reasonably expected by our company. She failed to follow all the safety recommendations. She failed to follow her own boss's guidelines and her expert witness's own advice. Simply put, this lawsuit is a miscalculation, it's misplaced, and simply misused to come after Drufo and Lush Fertilizer. At the end of this trial, you've seen all of our evidence. You have heard all the testimony from credible and not credible witnesses. We ask you to return a verdict in favor of Lush Fertilizer because their lawsuit, the plaintiff's lawsuit, is miscalculated, misplaced, and misused. Thank you.
Thank you. And was there any remaining time for final statement from the plaintiff? I have 113, 112. So we'll go ahead and go. We're going to go with the 112. Actually, I think it's 113. I just looked at the rules, and it's less than 15-second discrepancy. So it will. You have 1 minute and 13 seconds for any final closing argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. Miscalculation, misplacement, and misuse are what the defense claims happened today. And that did happen, but not on the part of the plaintiff. The defense miscalculated in not taking the proper precautions when testing Drufo. They are misplacing their blame on Ms. Weirs. Today, they have victim blamed her. They have blamed her for what is happening to her and the suffering that she has endured. And they have misused the information at hand. Carson Durst had no choice but to go to Tara's Greenery after he was ostracized and fired from Lush Fertilizer. So he went to their biggest competitor, yes, but it was to create a safer product that other people could use. And Ms. Weirs has suffered tragically, and she was young and impressionable at the time of her employment at Haven Landscaping. At 14, she was surrounded by adults who did not show her better, and by a boss who did not reinforce any of the precautions given. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our trial, and I'm gonna ask Ms. Flores, Mr. Berg, do either of you need time to for your scorekeeping?
I do not, Judge.
Okay, Ms. Flores?
No, Judge, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I do not either. Mr.
And
Berg, go ahead.
This is Jason Downey.
Hi,
I would
Jason.
ask that neither of you leave the session until I actually confirm receipt of your score sheets once you've submitted them. So go ahead and give the students some comments, and I will confirm once I have your score sheets, and then we can end the session.
Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and submit mine really quick. And okay. Mr. Berg, do you want to go first on comments?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. I've been doing this 15 or 20 years now, and I'm continually impressed by how well the students do, how thoroughly prepared they are on the case. This was the first year I didn't actually read the case, which is more like the college judging I do, because it's more realistic in terms of the presentation. I've got a couple overall comments. As the attorneys and the witnesses, the thing you need to remember is that you know the case, you've been studying it for weeks or months, and the judge and the jurors do not. And so you can't assume things because we don't know them. For instance, I know the case is about Drufo, but we didn't hear a question, I believe, what is Drufo, until the third plaintiff's witness. That would be something that I would think would be important to get in front of the jury right away, because you want to provide that roadmap for the jurors. You know, in terms of your case, it's a big puzzle, but you've got to give them a logical sequence of how you're going to present that, so that they don't get waylaid or they go off the side of the road. So keep that in mind. I really like the plaintiff's theme, wealth over health. I would have liked to have seen it emphasized a little bit more. You got the profit sheet in, you should turn that PDF so everyone can actually read it. But there was no questions actually about the numbers in there, which would have helped you emphasize that that theme of your case. I would have introduced that theme at the very beginning of my case. What I typically try to do, all I do is construction cases, but you know, for instance, you could say, this is a case about wealth over health. Okay, so your theme is out there in the very first sentence. and then you go from there. It was only introduced a little bit farther down in terms of the opening statement. So you want to get that theme out right away, and then you want to emphasize it during the testimony. One of the witnesses actually said wealth over health. That's a little contrived, in my opinion, to have a witness actually say that. But what I really liked at the end in closing, Mr. Damon turning that on its head. This is a case about wealth over health. Okay, he actually used that against the plaintiff, which I thought was quite clever and really good lawyering, because that's what lawyers do, is they react. Ms. Velasquez, I don't want to pick on you too much because one of your colleagues did the same thing, but you let Ms. Wynn go outside the scope of the affidavit, which you should never do. First rule of cross-examination, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. When you let her, and she warned you several times, it's beyond the scope of my statement. The rules provide they can't go beyond the scope. But she said, but if you want me to, I will. And you said, go ahead. Well, that was disastrous for you. That was absolutely disastrous, because then she made up whatever she wanted about the 10 peer-reviewed studies of what they were doing with the Drufo, and you can't respond. Okay. And so the following attorney did the same thing, letting the witness go beyond the scope of the affidavit. My suggestion would be never, ever do that, because you don't know the answer. Attorneys have a tendency to ask questions they don't know the answers to. And I'm sure Judge Hofecker could tell us lots of stories about how that does not work out. The better approach is always to be quiet. On those business records, the hearsay objections, it's you can make that objection. It's not a legitimate objection because, as the judge pointed out, those are business records. That's the response to a business record like the profit statement or the email. Was this document prepared in the ordinary course of business, maintained in the ordinary course of business? Did you receive it? Is it true and correct? Yes, it is. Move for the admission of exhibit 6 or 7, whatever it was, or 4. Okay. If they object on hearsay, you say business record. Objection will be overruled every time. The fallback position is always, it's not offered for the truth, but of course it's being offered for the truth. That's why we're doing it as a business record, where we want it to be used for the truth. Let me look quickly. I think those are the high points in terms of my notes. Putting the entire witness statement up there and having the witness read it, I don't think is effective impeachment. I don't think it's correct impeachment, number one, but I think it's time consuming, number one, and I don't think it's very effective. If you want to impeach someone with their prior inconsistent statement, direct them to the page and line. You ask them the question. If they testify differently, refer them to the page and line, and then have them read that rather than the entire statement. Just a suggestion there, because I think it disrupts the pace of the examination that you're doing. Asked and answered is not a legitimate evidentiary objection. It would be cumulative, as the judge pointed out. The objections to Mr. Doncourt should have been made. There were repeated questions by Mr. Maher regarding his feelings. Feelings are irrelevant in a civil trial when you're talking about how do you feel about this, okay? You can object based on relevance. Mr. Doncourt's opinions or feelings are irrelevant to this proceeding. But overall, outstanding job. I always enjoy doing this, a little respite from the real practice of law. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be with you today, and I wish both teams the best.
You're muted, but I think you're saying my turn. So I will be quick. Both teams, very impressive. Great job today. It was an honor to be here. So some general feedback. I think all of you, in seeing each other, you can see when there's confidence and conviction in what you're saying. For me, as a juror, and relatively blank slate, I don't have a legal background. When you speak with confidence and conviction, it makes what you are saying that much more compelling. So even if you are a witness, being prepared and knowing internalizing what you're saying, it comes across in how I perceive it. So each of you had some great strengths when you had that confidence and conviction. And then when you had maybe some surprise questions, or maybe a question that was asked in a way that you weren't prepared for it, take the time to take your breath or catch your breath, think about it, be thoughtful, so that you can continue to have confidence. Because that is, I would say that's one of the most influential things for people that are in the room that don't have the background. And so as you continue to go forward, best of luck to you. Be confident. You guys were fantastic, and I'm sure you will continue to do well as you go for the next phase. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Berg and Ms. Flores. I appreciate it. And everybody did fantastic. This is so hard to do over Zoom, and I think that needs to be acknowledged. And kind of towards that end, a couple of things that jumped out to me. I do think it's really helpful for you guys when you start to put your team number, your name, if you're an attorney, and then if you're a witness, the witness name / your own name. It just procedurally, we have to have that all written down, and it really is helpful. Again, towards kind of the Zoom weirdness, I really appreciate, like, obviously I'm trying to balance barking dogs actually in the other room and muting my computer, and you guys saying, hey, judge, and that's hard to do. And a couple of times you guys spoke up, and that's really important, because that could happen in a trial where a lawyer doesn't say something that maybe the judge did wrong, or a procedural issue that could turn the case, and they just stayed quiet about it, and that doesn't serve their client or their case. Everyone looks great, very professional. Appreciate how nice everybody looks. I think that you guys all did a good job of compensating for Zoom in the sense, a couple of things, your inflection of your voice. And when, you would change the pitch of your voice or the volume of your voice. I think it was Ms. Singh who testified as the defense doctor. She sounded like one. I mean, you sounded like, you were so kind of passionate about what you were talking about. And this is really complicated stuff for you guys. I mean, for me, talking about carcinogenics and fertilizers and cancer, and you all mastered that vocabulary really well, and did a great job of using your voices, as well as a couple of the witnesses use their hands, because you guys are kind of limited. You can't really use your body language because we can't see all of you. So a couple of the witnesses use their fingers, and we're counting things off. And that's compelling, because that makes me as a listener look up and have a visual cue to say, okay, these things that they are using their fingers to enumerate are important. And then lastly, Mr. Who was it? I have your names written down horribly. Mr. Damon, he stood up for his closing argument, and that was really a good move. And I recommend that all of you do that, because you can. It just kind of caught my attention, like, oh, he's different. And that was it. It was just that he was doing something a little bit different. So utilize I know you're limited by Zoom, but you guys do have some tools available. You used them today, but continue to use those. All the witnesses did a fantastic job. Mr. I think it's Ratai did a good job. He was a good lay witness, because he just was kind of unruffled and did a good job of his role and his witness. It made it very persuasive. Going to Mr. Berg mentioned it on the objections. Hearsay is a really, really tough objection. And so, one thing to consider is relevancy. is always a good objection, because oftentimes it forces the other side to play their card about where their case is going. And if they're going to have to tell you why this particular fact is relevant to make their next point, then you're one step ahead of the game because they're telling you what their next point is going to be. So you might want to consider shifting a little bit away from the hearsay, because there's so many exceptions. Real lawyers, including myself, bumble that. I mean, it's a tough, law school, there's basically like a whole semester on evidence and getting in hearsay, and it's a tough one. Again, on the theme, I caught the same thing as Mr. Berg. It's great when it was used against the other side, and you guys both had good themes. I picked up on the defenses too, but you guys emphasize those more. I don't think I have anything else. You guys are amazing. Good for you for all the work that you've put into this, your performance today. You all should walk out of here with your heads held high and be proud of your representation of your schools and yourselves and your team. And it just really neat experience. And thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. So I wish you guys all the best of luck. And Mr. Downey confirmed that he has received all of our scorecards. So we are ready to adjourn, and you guys all take care.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank all of you.
Good job, everyone.
We really appreciate you being